Welcome to today's webinar mini-series. My name is Elsa Noderman, and I'm the Communications and Research Associate here at the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group, and I'd like to welcome you to our RuFES Family Economic Success, or RuFES, webinar mini-series. This webinar mini-series is part of a larger set of Rural Family Economic Success webinars. However, we decided to do this webinar as a mini-series to get both deeper and broader on the topic. The RuFES Action Network is open to anyone, so please invite your friends and colleagues. As of yesterday, more than 120 people had registered for this webinar mini-series, and 89 had registered for this first session, and some of those are groups. Each webinar will be recorded and archived so you and others can watch and listen again, especially if you miss something or if presenters have to go through slides quickly due to time. You can go back and take a look at them later. So today's topic is the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, which provides low-income families with a significant financial boost. Increasingly, the use of EITC and the CTC, or Child Tax Credit, and other tax credits is among the most popular and effective strategies rural communities use to promote family economic success. So today's presenters will cover the following. In session 1, we will have 3 presenters covering preparing an excellent EITC program. In session 2, what's new this tax season. And in session 3, we'll hear 3 successful EITC rural stories. This webinar is part of the RuFES network, which is based on the RuFES framework. And the RuFES framework is built on 3 family-focused goals: earn it, keep it, and grow it. Specifically, this topic is within the keep it goal. Working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. And specifically, EITC targets the family-focused goals, which is that family use reasonably priced services, accounts, and products for their savings, checking, and other financial transactions. Families file tax returns annually, and families secure all tax benefits for which they qualify, starting with those that reward work, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and the Child Tax Credit. So just a couple of notes on participation. Everyone on the call is on mute for now. This will eliminate background noise, hopefully. In terms of questions, if you have clarifying questions during the presentation, please use your questions box in the control panel. If it is a clarifying question, then I will pose it to the presenter during the presentation. If it's a more cosmic question or a question about the content, then we'll have time for those questions after the 3 presentations. You can either pose your question in the questions box, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the little hand icon in your control panel. I'll see it and unmute you so you can actually ask your question. If you have any technical problems, use the questions box, or you can contact Mr. Kelly Malone by email or phone. Use kelly.malone@aspenins.org or 202-736-5804. So for session 1, preparing an excellent EITC program, we have 3 presenters. First of all, my colleague John Molinaro from the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group. Then we have Karen Heisler from Rural Dynamics and Jan Simpson from the Aspen Institute Economic Opportunities Program. And I just want to say that also this initiative is generously supported by the Annie Casey Foundation. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John Molinaro.
Thank you very much, Elsa, and welcome everybody. I'm glad to be here with you today. My presentation for today is basically focused on EITC basics. Elsa, I'm having difficulty, there we go, controlling the thing. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what EITC is, what the Child Tax Credit is, in a very brief way for those of you who might be new to this topic. The Earned Income Tax Credit is a refundable federal tax credit for low-income working families that's really built to make work pay for families. It's been around since 1975 when it was instituted under President Ford, and it's been renewed or expanded with broad bipartisan support in every subsequent administration, both Republican and Democrat. It's actually the largest anti-poverty program in America. It is far larger than than what one might call welfare programs, which nationally is called the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, but it's called other things in other states. It's also a tremendously underutilized rural community development opportunity. So how does this work? It's available to families who have children or families who don't have children. It's worth about $5,666 at a maximum for working families in 2010. Begins to phase out once somebody gets above the high teens in wages. For a two-parent family, phases out entirely at about a little over $49,000 if they have 3 or more qualifying children. This is a refundable tax credit, which is a really big deal here. What it means is that even if a family owes no taxes or pays no taxes, income taxes, they can get this credit back. And a family that has not received it in the past because they haven't filed or they made a mistake on their return can actually go back and collect it for previous years where they qualified by filing amended returns. That can lead to quite a sizable check for some families. So what difference does it make? Well, it lifts 5 million people out of poverty every year. Half of those 5 million are children. It makes work more lucrative than welfare for millions of families. It helps low-wage, full-time workers earn enough to meet their basic needs. And from an economic development perspective, it pumps billions of dollars into economies of low-income communities, and which is especially true in rural areas. So what is the child tax credit then? It's similar to the EITC in that it's a refundable tax credit, so that even those who owe no taxes can get a refund. It's worth up to $1,000 for each dependent child under the age of 17, provided that child is a U.S. citizen or legal resident alien living in the U.S. So why are we talking about these things here? 20 to 25% of the families that qualify for the earned income tax credit fail to claim it, and many of those are rural families. They leave billions of dollars in earned income tax credit unclaimed, and that hurts not only the families but the communities they live in. The additional income from the earned income tax credit can really reduce dependence on other programs and help make communities and states more financially sustainable. So why do some people miss out on this? Well, it's largely because they don't apply for it. They don't file taxes. They don't usually, or often because they don't hit the financial threshold where taxes are required to be filed, or perhaps for other reasons. Or maybe if they do file taxes, they don't know about the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit. Some of them fear that they'll owe taxes and so avoid the tax filing process. Some have a language barrier, which makes it harder for them to prepare a return or to even learn about the credit. And they may know, but incorrectly, fear that having those dollars come in from the tax credit will cause them to lose eligibility for other benefits, which is absolutely not correct. The challenges that are particular for rural earned income tax credits are distance in transportation, the availability of broadband so that you can do the online portion of the work. Qualified staff and volunteers can be hard to find in rural places, and marketing. These are some of the big ones. Our presenters today, especially those in the third webinar, will be talking, third chunk of the webinar, will be talking about the experiences that they have with the challenges that they face getting these services out in communities. And that's it for me.
Thanks, John. Now I'm going to turn it over to Karen Heisler. Karen?
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you're located. My name is Karen Heisler. I'm the Director of Asset Development for Rural Dynamics in Great Falls, Montana. We'll see if I can get these slides to go forward. Elsa, can you help me out here? It's not, there we go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about EITC program basics and how you can join or start an EITC coalition in your community. Just a little bit about myself. Rural Dynamics Incorporated is an organization that provides services and develops partnerships to help youth, individuals, and families achieve economic independence. We're a nonprofit organization that does work in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, and we were started in 1968. And this will be our 8th tax year coming up. About 8 years ago, we decided to get into the VITA business, or Volunteer Income Tax Assistance business. So if you want to go to the next slide, we started Tax Help Montana 8 years ago. 2011 will be our 8th year of VITA coordination. Last year, we filed over 4,300 returns and brought $5.2 million back to Montana communities. We served all 7 tribal communities and over 20 rural communities. So we're very familiar with the challenges of serving these populations in rural communities, large geographical areas, and we're trying to use some of the technologies and other efficiencies that we can use to serve these rural communities, because it is challenging. So why is EITC outreach and VITA important? 16 to 17% of all tax filers nationally receive the EITC. So that's a large number of people out there. But the interesting part is it's estimated that 25% of the people who qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit do not file for the credit because of one of these reasons. They don't know they qualify, they don't know how to claim the credit, or they don't know where to get free tax preparation. And we all have the opportunity, no matter what kind of organization we're working in, we all have the opportunity to help reach out to these 25%. The average EITC in 2008 was over $2,000, and $2,000 coming not only into a community, but coming into a low-income household can make a lot of difference for that household. So there's really 3 ways that you can join a movement, join the movement. One is you can start a volunteer income tax assistance program in your community. If you search out around your community and you find out there's not a VITA site or an earned income outreach campaign, you might need to gather some partners together to start a program in your community. You could also join a program that's already in your region or state. If you're in a state that has a statewide coalition and you're in a town that's not being served currently, you could reach out to that statewide coalition and become part of their movement. Or you could start just the EITC outreach program, the marketing and outreach for earned income tax credit in conjunction with local VITA sites. So if there are sites, college sites, community sites in your area, but you're serving a low-income population, you could do outreach and marketing for those populations in your communities to drive people to the VITA sites. So what types of organizations or community groups run EITC campaigns? I have to say it's very interesting. There isn't an organization out there, I don't think, that this could have an impact for your clients. If you're serving low or moderate income individuals, EITC is going to affect the population you're serving. And so there's a wide variety of organizations that run EITC campaigns, from nonprofits, community-based organizations, United Way organizations and affiliates, VOTEX, tribal colleges, universities, extension services. Community development organizations often have EITC campaigns. The Administration for Children and Families at a federal level has EITC as one of their priority areas. So Head Start organizations, child care, child support, child welfare, all of those programs have an EITC outreach. Libraries, counties, local governments, they're not faith-based organizations. There's so many that it would be hard to list all of the organizations that are involved in EITC because of the difference that it makes and the money that it brings back to rural communities. So if you're interested, where would you start? The first thing that I would suggest to you is to contact the local IRS spec person in your state. You can go to the IRS's website and find out who the IRS spec people are There's territory managers and there's state level people, but find out who that IRS spec agent is. There's even an email where you can say, I'm interested in starting a VITA site, and they will get that information to your local person and get back to you. So start with the IRS, because they're our friends in this program. Gather partners and garner support. This program takes a lot of partners together. Together we can do more when it comes to EITC and volunteer income tax assistance sites. So I suggest that you gather partners together, because if you gather people together, then you can serve more people and kind of spread the work throughout the organizations. It's important to have a lead organization or program manager that is coordinating things, especially during the tax season. There are some requirements from the IRS. There are forms that have to be filled out and requirements that have to be met. So it's important to have somebody that's responsible for making sure those things get done, so that this important program does stay a program that the IRS supports and that we can continue to do, because it's utmost important that we are performing quality services out in the field. So we want to make sure to maintain our quality, that we're doing good service for these people so that we can continue to serve them.
And Karen, I just wanted to quickly say that SPEC stands for Stakeholder Partnerships, Education, and Communication, just in case people didn't know.
Absolutely. I use acronyms and assume people know them, but that is the group that has volunteer income tax assistance and education under the IRS. Establishing a volunteer recruitment plan is very important. This program really started as a volunteer program. We use volunteers that are certified, IRS certified, to prepare the tax returns. The volunteers can do outreach, the volunteers can do intake, so it's very important to have a good volunteer recruitment plan. And then it's important to create a marketing plan to reach out to organizations who serve these populations. We have utilized a wide variety of partners in marketing this. We have banks and credit unions that give out flyers to people as they're going through the drive-in to make their deposits. There have been organizations across the country that have gotten McDonald's to list out on their tray, the paper that goes on their trays, to have the marketing of the tax sites on their tray papers. There's a wide variety of ways. PSAs, most local radio stations will do PSAs for free. So it's pretty easy to get the marketing plan out. And then it's important to train the volunteers. Now I will say that the IRS provides a ton of resources, so it sounds kind of daunting, I'm going to start a tax program. But I will let you know that 6 years ago when I started this, I was not an accounting major. And the first program manager that I hired was a poetry major. So we firmly believe that anybody can start a VITA program if we can do it. We've had that belief for a few years now. So don't be alarmed or think I can't do this because I'm not an accountant, because the IRS does have the training materials. They have web-based tools and training, so anybody can do this. And components of a successful program, again, IRS spec is very important to engage them to get their support, because again, they provide training, they provide a lot of tools, and they can provide a lot of assistance and helping you connect with other resources in the communities. So make sure that you contact your IRS. Volunteer recruitment and retention is very important. Volunteers are like gold in this program. You want to keep them, and you want to keep them happy and keep them coming back. And I will say that most programs have a very high volunteer retention rate, because it is a very rewarding program to sit down and help people with their taxes and see how much they appreciate it. But make sure that you are retaining them throughout the tax season and beyond, making sure they feel appreciated and know how much they're giving back to their community. Partnerships, another important thing for a successful program, and looking for some unlikely partners. It could be a nonprofit organization reaching out to the faith-based communities that they haven't worked with before. Looking at businesses in your community that may be paying Low-income wages, a lot of times they will allow you to come into their sites and market or have a tax site right there in their business. But there's all kinds of partners that you can reach out to that can help you with your programs. Accounting firms and banks and financial institutions, credit unions can oftentimes support the program with volunteers or marketing. And marketing, again, is a very important part. Door hangers in low-income communities, PSAs, financial institutions are a great way to get the word out through their statements and emails and through their drive-thrus. Local and regional radio and local businesses that can hand out or have signs showing where the sites are during the tax season. And I would say it's important to start now, and it's important to advertise. As you know, the paid preparers are already starting to advertise. We'll start hearing ads about come get your money for Christmas, things like that. And so it's important to start advertising for this now so people are thinking about, even before Christmas, where they're going to go to get their tax returns done. And I would also say that VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, is not just about tax preparation. It's really looking at people, looking at the systemic way we can help lift people out of poverty, not just this one-time boost to their income, but how can we help them on a longer-term basis. And so a lot of sites across the country screen people for work support programs. They can screen them and find out if they qualify for assistance in other areas. They're linking them to individual development accounts, and some of these people are starting their individual development accounts, which are matched savings accounts. They're starting them at the tax sites and seeding them with that little chunk of money that they get during tax season. Access to financial accounts is an important thing. The first question we ask is, do you want direct deposit? And if they say no, we're going to try to find out why, and we're going to try to get them banked so that they have access to affordable financial accounts that they may not have known about or may not have had access to. A lot of sites are also giving access to prepaid cards so that they can get their returns. Returns from the IRS are coming faster and faster. Right now it's 5 to 10 days to get your refund if you get it direct deposited or put on a prepaid card. If you're getting it mailed, it could be 4 to 6 weeks. So having access to prepaid cards is another tool to be able to get people their refund faster. And linking to community resources. There's community resources in all of these communities that can help these people, again, not just lift themselves out of poverty during this time where they're getting the earned income credit, but help them with work support and workforce development, and link them into programs in their community to help them throughout the year.
Karen, this is Janet Topolsky from Aspen, and we had a caller who has asked you to remind people the amount of time it takes to train volunteers, so people are calculating that timing into their planning for the program.
Sure. There's a couple ways that you can train volunteers, and in rural communities, I can tell you in Montana it's very difficult. We could not go provide training in those 20 communities between now and the tax season. So the IRS has a training program called Link and Learn, which is an online tool that volunteers can go on. It's a very good tool. They can go through the training at their own time, so they don't have to get out of work or anything else. They can go on at their own time and become certified. That tool is up and running right now. So volunteers, if you have people that are interested, could start getting trained and prepared now. Some programs have week-long training programs during December or January, but most programs start training one way or another the beginning of December, which is right around the corner, unfortunately. So you'll need to start recruiting volunteers and start training people. And I would say another thing that I didn't mention in the volunteer recruitment, if you have a local community college, tribal college, even some high school programs have used volunteers from colleges and high schools. They go through the program and get trained. Some of them get credit for their participation in the program, and some of the high school students get service activity awards that are more and more necessary for some graduation requirements. So looking at colleges and high schools. But training really has to begin in December to get people certified. The e-file start date in January is January 17th this year. So 6 weeks is really not a long time to get people trained and certified through the program. And just a few resources that I'm going to talk about. First of all is the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. They are, if you go to cbpp.org, there's a 2011 outreach kit that will be out shortly. You can sign up to get that kit. It's a free tool that they do every year. Great outreach. It has posters and different flyers you can use and a lot of good information. You can also go on that site and look in your community and see the EITC impact in your community, so you can see how many EITC dollars are coming back, which is important if you're trying to get partners or sponsors or state or local government bought in, because it really shows the economic impact of the EITC in your local community. The second one that I'd like to talk about a little bit is the National Community Tax Coalition. NCTC provides training and technical assistance. They have webinars, they have volunteer recruitment training, they have a lot of different tools that EITC and VITA sites can use during for their tax campaigns, and you can access them at www.tax/coalition.org. And the last one, if you're thinking about doing VITA and starting the sites, is you go to the IRS website and find the Site Coordinator's Handbook. If you go to their publications, it's Pub 1084, and that Site Coordinator's Handbook really is very thorough. It lists out on a month-to-month basis the things that you need to get done, and it's a very good starting point for people to use. And I won't talk about the next one because Jan is going to talk about the EITC platform.
Karen, one more thing from Janet. Becky Jenkins was kind enough to write in and mention that the TaxWise training software should be running on November 22nd with all of the updates for the 2011 tax year.
Yeah,
So
I just went on. Yeah, I actually went on the site yesterday, and you were able to get on, but I know there's still, on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of been on and off. So
right. So, but Becky seems to know that it would be available November 22nd with all the updates.
Perfect. And just for my contact information, if you're thinking about starting a site, you need some assistance, or you just don't know where to go, I am happy to direct you to the right person. And my contact information is on this last slide.
Great, thanks, Karen. And actually, we will be hearing from the CBPP and the NCTC in the next session. So if people are interested in those resources, stick around. Next, we will hear from Jan Simpson from the Aspen Institute Economic Opportunities Program. Jan?
Hi, everyone. This is Jan Simpson, as Elsa just said. I'm so happy to be here with you today and hear how many of you are interested in starting programs or getting some refreshers on your programs. As Karen said, the EITC platform is a resource for your sites to use, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. It's an online platform available for free to anyone, both tax sites or clients if they wish to look at anything. There is a registration required, but it's very simple and quick. And what the registration does is enable us to contact you about updates, and also enables you to get on the site so you can contact us and access all the tools and services. What I thought I would do is just walk you through the site live today for, I think I have about 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll go through each of these tabs at the top. Can everybody see this?
We can see it.
Great, thank you. So I've already logged in here, as you can see, and there are 5 areas currently here. There's the home page, a page on tax prep, on management, on asset building, and on resources. We actually are probably within the next week or so going to move some things around and add a data tab, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So these are the main areas you'll see. I'm going to go through each one, let you know what's on each page. The tax prep page is probably the one most apropos to this particular webinar. It has a number of things available to you, some quick guides, and first and foremost, I think, is the quality reviewer training. This is something that was actually the basis for creating the EITC platform. There was thought to be a need for the quality reviewers at tax sites to have a little bit more background to help catch errors, which would then, on tax returns, which would then enable, hopefully, higher refunds for your customers and clients. Let's see. Oh, just to back up a little bit, I wanted to let you know also, as Elsa said earlier, about the RuFES program. The EITC platform is also supported by the Annie E. Casey Foundation and has been since it started in 2007. We currently have about 3,200 registered users on the platform. Some of those come and go, of course, because some are volunteers that don't come back year after year. But we're hoping to get a little more usage this year because we're offering some updated tools, especially in the data area. The quality reviewer training, I just want to show you a little bit what this is all about. There are 9 scenarios. There are 6 basic scenarios and 3 advanced scenarios. We have been told that some sites actually require their volunteers, or certainly their quality reviewers, to take one or more than one or all 9 of these trainings. They're fairly quick, and I'm sorry it's taking so long to load. What each of them enables you to do is learn a little bit. They're actually like real scenarios, like with different types of tax clients. And okay, here we go. So you can see you can choose any one. These are the 6 basic trainings. And once you start, you will see samples of tax returns and a checklist here to help you figure out what might be wrong on that tax return. When you complete that, you click Submit. It tells you which things that you might have gotten incorrect. You also are able to print out this checklist. You are able to view the documents that belong to this particular customer, and then you can also ask the customer questions based on things that you see on their return. And this shows you the highlighted, the bolded ones are the forms available for this particular client. So I really encourage you to take a look at that, see if they're useful for you. We think they will be. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on them over these 4 years they've been available. So let us know what you think. There are also fact sheets about these trainings available, some additional research. This research, I think, was a research done actually in 2008 by Amy Brown, who is now with the Ford Foundation, showing the effectiveness of this quality review training and how it has helped increase returns. This, actually, some of you may have seen this if you're already EITC platform users. This is a program with One Economy who helps some sites prepare self-prep areas at their tax sites. There was a grant available. There is not, that closed, I think, just the other day, but you could still fill this out, and they have information available that can help you. We also have a couple of takeaways here for your clients. We found that people told us this was very helpful. Clients just like to know a little bit about what's going on. It makes them feel like they're getting something additional back. It's a summary, basically, of the information that you have given them. It's something you can fill out. I'm sorry, it's taking a while to load here. It just tells, it's a summary of everything that you've done with them and how much they can actually expect on their return. Just a reminder for them. There's also a quick guide on self-employment returns for those of you who have sites who also might be working with micro-entrepreneurs and are and filling out separate forms for them. On the management tab, these are things available just to help your site in general. There's some discounts available here, PC Mall, buying computers through them, Staples. There's also volunteer management software, which is through Volunteer Hub. I'm sure some of you use them already. I know there are a variety of companies that offer volunteer management and scheduling software. One of the things, just to let you know, we may have coming up next year is we thought it might be useful to put together a comparison of those various
similar disciplines. We've also seen some colleges have very extensive online service learning programs, and we've seen ties between those service learning programs, which will actually do the work of lining up your volunteers, lining up the transportation. I mean, in many places, they can take a lot of the footwork off of your hands for recruiting volunteers. Certainly, retired people out of the various finance professions are a fairly common source. You know, in addition, there are many combined retired senior volunteer tax programs that are combined with VITA programs, and so your local senior programs can be a great source of assistance for this sort of thing.
And I think one of the things that Karen mentioned is really important is that once you get a volunteer in a program like this, they like to keep doing it, and the reason is they get such gratification out of helping people, you know, take a check home and be able to help their families do better. It's once you know how to do taxes, you know how to do taxes. You just have to get a few updates every year, and it's just an incredibly gratifying volunteer opportunity because you see the result, you know, and you see the result and you see that it makes a difference in people's lives. So it's actually, as recruiting volunteers goes, this is a much easier sell than, you know, selling tickets, for example.
Mm-hmm. At least one program we've worked with in Iowa has also used clergy as volunteers.
Karen also has some more thoughts. Karen?
Two other things that I thought about was the RSVP program, which John just alluded to, but also in a lot of places there's TANF work programs where the people on TANF have to work a certain amount of hours in order to get their benefits, and those people oftentimes they like the volunteer income tax program because they get real work experience and can get referrals from that for jobs. So in Montana it's called WEX. I'm not sure in other states what it's called, but it's a good source. If you go to your workforce development TANF program, they can probably help you out.
Great. Well, any other questions? Let's see, I don't see any more hands. We have a question from Dean Miner, who says, have any of your panel members had experience with the virtual VITA program now being promoted by SPEC, which eliminates the need for certified volunteers at real sites when done in partnership with preparers who are typically located in more urban areas?
This is Karen. We do use the non-face-to-face. Montana is a huge state, and like I said, it's often difficult to get to all the communities that want free tax preparation. And so what we do is there are specific rules on the non-face-to-face filing, and you set up an intake site, and the intake site could be a library, it could be a county or state office, it could be any kind of community organization, but the intake site can be not only in a different community, it could literally be in a different state as long as the state was trained in the state taxes of that, of where the clients are coming from. And so that allows us to prepare taxes from communities 8 hours away. They go to the intake site, they fill out the form that they need to fill out, the information is then transmitted, scanned, or mailed to the site where there are a large number of volunteers. They do the tax return, they contact the client with any questions, and then the information is sent back to the intake site where the client can fill that out. There's also people using cameras, video cameras, computer cameras to talk to people over long distances. So as funding gets tighter and communities are, still spread apart, we have to use technology to be efficient. So that's another way. If you're in a very rural community, you could link up with an urban community that's close to you and possibly just be an intake site and still help get your community served.
Great, thanks, Karen. And we are getting close to our time, so I'm just going to finish up here. If you have more questions for any of our presenters, you're welcome to send them our way. You can send them to my email at elsa.noterman, N-O-T-E-R-M-A-N, at aspeninstitute.org. And I will get those questions answered for you. This webinar, as well as the next 2 sessions, will be recorded and posted online within a couple of days, as will all of the handouts, as that are the PowerPoint presentations. We will also post those online if you want to look at those later or share them with your colleagues. We'll also be sending around a link for a brief evaluation that will help us make future RuFES webinars better. And I thank you again for participating in this first session. If you'd like to stick around for the second session, we will be hearing about 2011 tax year updates. And you're welcome to join us. So you have 10 minutes. The next session will start at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks very much. Webinar. My name is Elsa Noterman, and I am the Communications and Research Associate here at the Aspen Institute Community Strategies Group. I'd like to welcome you to our Rural Family Economic Success, or RuFES, webinar mini-series. It's open season on taxes, prepare to run a first-rate rural EITC campaign. I know some of you are on the last session, so please be patient as I go through the basics for those new folks who are on the call. This webinar series is part of a larger set of RuFES webinars for our RuFES Action Network, which is open to anyone who wants to participate and is supported by the Annie Casey Foundation. We decided to do this webinar as a mini-series to get both deeper and broader on this topic this year. As of yesterday, more than 120 people had registered for this webinar mini-series, and 111 had registered for this particular session, some of them those being groups. Each webinar will be recorded and archived so you and others can watch and listen again. The presentation materials will also be available online after the webinar. So today's topic is the Earned Income Tax Credit, which provides low-income Americans with a crucial financial boost. The use of EITC, the child tax credit, and other tax credits is among the most popular and effective strategies rural communities use to promote family economic success. In this session, presenters will share an introduction to the, in this section, presenters will talk about what's new this tax season and related policy updates. So these RuFES webinars are built on the RuFES framework, which is built on 3 family-focused goals: earn it, keep it, and grow it. Specifically, today's webinar is focused on the family-focused goal, keep it. Working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. And the EITC targets 3 family-focused goals: that families use reasonably priced services, accounts, and products for their savings, checkings, and other financial transactions, that families file tax returns annually, and that families secure all tax benefits for which they qualify, starting with those that reward work, the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. So a couple notes now on participation. At the moment, all participants are on mute, which will reduce background noise. If you have any clarifying questions during the presentation, please use the questions box in your webinar control panel. I will see those and pose it to the presenters as they come up. However, if you have more cosmic questions or larger content questions, you can save those for the question and answer period, which will be after our 3 presentations. You can either raise your hand by pressing on a little hand icon. I will see that and unmute you and call on you. Or you can type your question into the questions box if you prefer. If you have any technical problems, you're welcome to use the questions box. If it's really bad, you can call or email Mr. Kelly Malone at kelly.malone@aspeninst.org or 202-736-5804. So in this session, what's new this tax season, we are going to be hearing from 3 presenters. We have Roxy Keynes from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, and we have Sean Noble from the National Community Tax Coalition, and we have Dan Mayer from the IRS SPEC. So with that, I am going to give mouse control over to Roxy. And Roxy, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. I am excited and happy to share with you. So for those of you who aren't familiar, first I want to share a little bit about the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Okay, the Center is a nonprofit organization that primarily conducts research and analysis on federal programs that impact low and moderate wage individuals. And since 1989, we've also conducted a tax credit outreach campaign that serves as a public education initiative that is focused on promoting the Earned Income Tax Credit. Over the years, as the Earned Income Tax Credit has grown and expanded, so has our campaign. So now the campaign also promotes the Child Tax Credit and free tax filing assistance as well. We deliver our message through 2 core elements. One is a community tax credit outreach kit, and I'll be sharing more information about this later on during the presentation. And we also conduct trainings and provide technical assistance to different groups that are engaged in outreach activities locally so that we can help you develop a strategy to expand your outreach activities. So now that you know a little bit about the Center, let me review what I'll be sharing during this presentation. So we'll go over what you need to know this tax season, the essential information. We'll look at the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 and look at some of the impacts that it's made. We'll look at efforts to assist self-employed taxpayers, as well as resources and outreach strategies for rural practitioners. We'll also take a brief glimpse at how you can strengthen your EIC outreach program and the support that is available from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities National Tax Credit Outreach Campaign. So let's get into what you need to know. So one of the first things that people always ask when it comes to the Earned Income Credit and Child Tax Credit are, number one, how much is the credit worth? How much are the credits worth? And 2, what are the income guidelines to actually claim the credits? So this chart illustrates that information. You can see that for the Earned Income Credit, it is based on the number of children one is raising. The middle column highlights the income, and someone must earn less than this income amount. And then the last column highlights the maximum amount of the credit. So for the 2011 year, when we are filing our tax returns in 2012, we'll be filing for the 2011 year, and the EIC is worth a maximum of $5,751. The income amounts in the middle column represent the income for single workers. So if you are filing tax returns for married workers, you'll add $5,080 to these income limits to get the income guidelines for married workers. The child tax credit is structured a little bit differently. So the child tax credit is worth $1,000 per child for those who earn more than $3,000. This will be the additional child tax credit, which is the refundable portion of it. So these are the basic amounts of the that the credits are worth. when we file in 2012. So next to note changes or other things that you might want to be aware of. There aren't any major changes or new aspects to the credits. There is one thing that I would like to highlight, and this is something that actually became effective in December 2010. So the way that the tax refunds interact with other public benefits has changed, and it's been a change for the better. So now the rules state that that tax credit refunds do not count as income for any program with federal funding. And when refunds are saved, they will not count as a resource or as an asset for 12 months after the refund is received. So this is a great expansion and provides more opportunities for people to save their refunds and use it in different ways. And this is a question that some people do find as a barrier to actually claiming the tax credits. People think that they may lose their benefits. So this is something that you definitely want to incorporate in your tax credit outreach activities. So now let's take a look at the result and impact of ARA. So first I want to note that the expansions to the Earned Income Credit and Child Tax Credit are effective through 2012. So in the earlier slide that I mentioned the income amounts and the credit amounts, you saw that there was a tier for 3 or more children, 2 children, 1 child, and no children. And so that 3 or more children level is part of the expansions that were put into effect under ARA. So that will continue. And there are efforts to extend these expansions or also make them permanent. So there are efforts that will continue with that. A recent center report illustrates the impact of these expansions along with other safety net programs. So just to highlight, there are 6 ARA initiatives that kept 6.9 million people out of poverty in 2010. And the expansions to the EIC and CTC specifically kept 1.6 million people out of poverty. We also had the Making Work Pay tax credit, which is no longer available, but if someone did not claim it in 2009 or 2010, then they would be able to still get that retroactively. And that tax credit alone kept another 1.5 million people out of poverty. So when we look at the next slide, we can see how this, we can see a visual for this. So in addition to those 3 tax credits, there were also expansions and enhancements made to unemployment insurance as well as the SNAP program. So this illustrates how the tax credits and the expansions are working and are making a difference. So one of the other things that's been happening and a way to help more taxpayers is specific efforts to help self-employed workers. There is a project that's known as SETI, which is the Self-Employment Tax Initiative that comes from the Corporation for Enterprise Development. And this effort focuses on lower-income self-employed taxpayers. Since 2006, CFED has been able to provide support to over 40 organizations to develop assistance for free or low-cost tax preparation assistance, as well as business development and asset building services. Some of these programs that are in rural areas include programs in Montana and Minnesota. CFED has an online resource bank that you can take a look at, and this resource bank includes tools and templates and information about how you can also provide support for self-employed workers beyond tax preparation. And if you have specific questions or want to learn how you can get involved, then you can contact Kim Pate at CFED. DETI has collaborated with the National Community Tax Coalition as well as the IRS beginning in 2010 to look at ways to expand support to self-employed workers at VITA sites, to give VITA sites the ability to actually complete these tax returns, which wasn't previously available. And so for this year, during the pilot in 2011, there were 12 VITA programs that these organizations worked with to develop training materials and also look at the return filing procedures. So the pilot will continue again in 2012 in 13 communities. So this is another effort to assist self-employed workers. Now I would like to share with you some resources and outreach strategies and opportunities that have been successful for rural practitioners and communities specifically. So first, when it comes to offering free tax preparation services, there's an opportunity called Virtual VITA. And if you were on the previous webinar, you might have heard about this a little bit. So Virtual VITA is an opportunity for two organizations to partner to file tax returns. One organization serves as the intake site, and the other organization serves as the preparation site. And these organizations do not have to be in the same city or in the same county, and in some cases they could be in different states as long as the preparation site is versed in the rules for the state that it is preparing tax returns for. So the tax return is actually completed using video conferencing, fax, or email. And this is an opportunity to really be able to serve more people, especially for organizations that aren't able to become a VITA site on your own right now. This is a way to still provide the free tax filing assistance services. There is IRS approval that is needed. There are specific identification numbers that are needed as well. So you can contact your spec territory manager for more information about how you can become involved in this. Also, another opportunity is online self-preparation. So here, this is an opportunity where taxpayers can input their own tax return data, and they can still receive assistance and ask questions from someone who is trained as a volunteer income tax assistance preparer to complete their return. And there are a couple of ways that this can actually take place. One is called facilitated self-assistance. There's also the free assisted self-service tax preparation program as well. So each of those programs are available in different states. Every state is covered by one program. I've included a link to a brochure that is specifically about the FAST program, which comes through IRS. And then there's also another opportunity to make tax self-preparation available using different websites that walk people through how to file their taxes on their own. There's the My Free Taxes, I Can E-File, and the Free File Alliance as well. One of the benefits of doing this through the FAST program or the FAST program is that those returns that people complete on their own will still count towards the returns that your total site is filing. So these are just a couple of opportunities, and people do, organizations that have done this have reported that it's really an opportunity to empower clients, and they have a lot of pride and joy when they actually file their own tax returns on their own. So also, I want to share some information about tax credit outreach strategies for rural communities, and this does kind of go hand in hand with the free tax preparation opportunities that we just took a look at. So one, mobile sites or roving sites are a way to expand free tax filing assistance in rural communities. You can bring the tax services to the people. You can schedule it for one day or have multiple events, and you can also use it as a way to connect people to other services. So, for example, the FileMyTaxes.com website is a bus that travels nationally to provide this service. And then also BB&T Bank is another popular bus that goes around, and as a bank, it also provides an opportunity to connect people to bank accounts. Also, high school VITA sites are another opportunity to expand free tax filing assistance. It also engages students, and so students may become volunteer tax preparers either through a specific class or an academic program, or it could be a part of an after-school program. It's a great opportunity because the students are connected to the school, so you have repeated opportunities to connect with families as well as other people in the community. And then it's also an opportunity to expand services and provide assistance with federal student aid applications, because with those applications, the information from tax returns is needed, so you can bundle those two together. So no matter what you do and where you are in your outreach efforts, there's generally opportunities for improvement and growth. So if you'd like to grow your program and look at ways to become stronger and more effective, I'd like to share 3 tips with you. One is to establish partnerships and work with others. This website link that I'm including is a link to the National EITC Outreach Partnership. And at this link, you'll find links to different coalitions listed by state. So you can look to see if there's a coalition that covers your area and look at the different organizations that are part of the coalition. If there's not one in your area, you can still look to see what partners are involved in other areas in your state. And then oftentimes there are counterparts that you can reach out to in your area. So of course, by partnering with other groups, you're going to be able to expand your outreach. Also, reaching out to communities and not just individuals is helpful and important. So looking at events that bring communities together, such as sporting games or festivals. And finally, be creative. There are many opportunities to address potential barriers when it comes to outreach, especially in rural communities. The distance can be a barrier. So Pathways PA in Pennsylvania looked at this and addressed this by establishing mobile sites, specifically partnering with child care centers. There's also an opportunity to work with cooperative extensions, which are in several counties, often in rural communities, and cooperative extensions have satellite conferencing technology that they can use, that you can possibly partner with them so that you can use it to conduct your tax credit outreach activities. So these are just a few of the tips and strategies that are available to you, and there's a lot more that you can find through the Center's outreach campaign. So as I mentioned earlier, we provide tax credit outreach kits, and these tax credit outreach kits include detailed information about the tax credits, how to claim them. We have a whole guide on different outreach strategies and a specific section dedicated to rural communities. There's outreach materials that you can use as well. And it's a great opportunity to either start your outreach efforts or expand them. We can also work with you to connect you to other groups in your area that are conducting tax credit outreach activities or those that have received our kit. On our website, which is eitcoutreach.org, we have several resources that are available that you can look at as well. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Roxy. And I just wanted to say to all the participants that we will make the PowerPoint presentation as well as the recording available online after the webinar. So next we are going to turn to Sean Noble from the National Community Tax Coalition. So Sean, are you there?
I am, and thank you, Elsa. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, great.
Okay. Thanks very much to Elsa and to RuFES for this opportunity today, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you for just a little while about this important subject of the Earned Income Tax Credit. Real brief introduction to the National Community Tax Coalition. We are the country's largest, most comprehensive membership organization for community-based programs that offer free tax prep and financial services to low-income working families. And altogether, we represent about 12,000 community VITA sites, volunteer income tax assistance sites, nationwide, that collectively prepare an estimated 3 million tax returns for low and moderate income workers. The EITC, as you might imagine, is one of our top priorities, and for pretty important reasons. It represents nearly $60 billion worth of help to more than 26 million households across the country. So we are certainly interested in trying to partner with many other organizations and groups, folks throughout the country, on meeting some of the challenges that the EITC faces and trying to take advantage of opportunities to keep it strong and even to grow it as it's possible. And I'm going to turn attention now to a few of the challenges and the opportunities that are several thousand feet up in the air, kind of a national perspective of policy possibilities in the coming year. One of the things that we face right now, and it's in the news constantly, can't even say daily, it's in the news about every 5 minutes right now, the deficit reduction efforts at the national level that pose one particular threat to the EITC and to a range of other tax credits that are important to struggling families, such as the CTC and the American Opportunity Tax Credit. By next Wednesday, as everyone probably has heard by now, the Congressional Joint Select Committee on Deficit Reduction, the Super Committee, is charged with coming up with a proposal to slash the deficit by at least $1.2 trillion over the next decade. And that's a plan that Congress would have to vote on by December 23rd. This is actually the second phase of a plan that began in August, a few months ago, when Congress approved nearly $1 billion worth of budget cuts. Those cuts are hitting various areas of education, healthcare, human services, and other critical supports for people in need. One area that those cuts are not hitting so far is the Earned Income Tax Credit. They were not among the priorities that were subject to cuts in that plan. It's not at all clear that the EITC is going to remain protected by the so-called Super Committee, and that's where the challenge really comes in for us now. The Super Committee has a dozen members that are split evenly between Democrats and Republicans, and of course they have pretty varying opinions about how to treat tax credits for working families. Now, in determining what cuts to recommend, the Super Committee could target the EITC as well as the child tax credit and higher education tax credits. But in addition to the prospect of straight-up cuts, there's also been some talk among some lawmakers for taking another tack that would affect the EITC and some of the other vital programs and services that kids and families need, and that's changing the inflation factor. It's used for calculating annual adjustments in benefits like these. So if they went with this method that's known as the chain CPI, or the chain consumer price index, it would tighten the reins up a little bit on the modest annual increases that are made in the amount of the EITC and some of these other benefits, all with an eye toward deriving some savings. Now, if the Super Committee does not act on a plan by next Wednesday, if they can't come together in an agreement, there's this fallback option, an automatic process of across-the-board cuts that will kick in, totaling $1.2 trillion. And I don't believe these fallback option cuts, these sequestration cuts as they're known, are allowed to touch the EITC or the CTC. But as you can imagine, there's enormous pressure on the Super Committee to avoid having to go back to that option, that fallback option, and to come up with a plan that's more thoughtful and deliberate than this across-the-board alternative. At this point, things are very, very much up in the air and volatile, and we have to keep an eye on what's going on in D.C. there, as well as another aspect that's related to the federal deficit reduction efforts, and that is the fact that in August, when Congress voted on this multi-step plan, they also said that there will have to be a vote in the House and a vote in the Senate on a balanced budget amendment. And in the House, that vote right now is tentatively scheduled, I believe, for Friday, for tomorrow. It's a vote that would need a supermajority in order to be approved in each chamber, and then, of course, there'd be ratification by the states. Now, a balanced budget amendment could, over time, force some very, very dramatic cuts in just about everything. And Roxy's organization, Center on Budget, just put out a report this week that did a good job of quantifying the potential impact of these cuts. Could force cuts by 2018 that, if they were enacted across the board, would slash more than 17% from all programs. The refundable portions of the EITC and the CTC would be in danger in that kind of a situation. So this is a situation to keep our eyes on as well. The votes over the next couple of days, and to share with policymakers how we feel about this. Can say that certainly overall, NCTC and many of our advocate partners have come up with a couple of ideas that we believe need to be part of any approach to deficit reduction that federal policymakers take. We need to take a balanced approach that includes new revenues in the mix and does not rely just upon cuts in the vital services that struggling families need, especially during times like this. We also feel very strongly that we need to avoid pushing any more families into poverty or deeper into poverty. As a matter of fact, recent bipartisan efforts at deficit reduction recommendations from the President's Simpson Commission last year and the Senate's Gang of Six effort earlier this year all strongly championed this principle of avoiding the worsening of poverty. As a matter of fact, those a couple of efforts I just named specifically pointed out the EITC should be excluded from cuts. And it's important to know that the last three major federal deficit reduction packages over the last 20 years were specifically designed to avoid increasing poverty as well. So that's a principle that we hope that federal policymakers will hold dear as they're moving forward. Now, looking down the road to the next year as well, there is the situation of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act improvements in the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, the American Opportunity Tax Credit as well. And Roxy mentioned some of these in her talk. Last December, these changes that were made in tax law in the original ERA Act of 2009 were granted a 2-year extension that runs out at the end of this year. And those improvements in the EITC that Roxy mentioned, the marriage penalty reduction, and the creation of this new tier of help for families with 3 children or more are up for either extension or what NCTC would prefer, and many of our partners prefer, to be made permanent. There's the chance that they would stand going away altogether if Congress doesn't take the right action. And one of the challenges is that Congress also has to act at that time on the overall tax cuts of 2001 and 2003 that last year were also granted a 2-year extension. So they've got all these different measures that they could act on together as a package. They could take the package apart. They could parcel it out in different ways. But whatever the case is, there's going to have to be some action at the end of this year. And if we do not extend or make permanent those EITC and CTC improvements, then the numbers that Roxy was talking about of families and people that will be affected really are pretty staggering. So we'll also want to be advocating on behalf of that. This also could be taking place in the context of a push for overall tax reform, which is there's been talk about that heating up, particularly as the election year rhetoric starts to heat up as well, and will be in the news a lot over the course of the next year. Now, many folks might remember that the last time Washington took on widespread tax reform in 1986, it was a multi-year effort, so it's very difficult to imagine it all happening in short order. But there certainly will be a lot of talk about it. We'll want to keep our eye on this, and we'll want to be talking about if there are bigger overarching tax reforms on the horizon. We got to really work to make them as fair as possible, and any changes ought to reflect families' individual abilities to pay, rather than just exacerbating the growing disparities between the wealthiest Americans and everyone else. So the EITC is an important part of that mix that we'll want to advocate on behalf of. The overall backdrop of conversation that's going to be filled with a lot of hype and histrionics increasingly in the next year with it being an election year often includes some bad or some misleading information that we need to be kind of aware of and to ensure is kept in context so that policy deliberations are made in a sober-minded manner. We all need to know the facts on things like this assertion that pops up over and over, particularly this year over the summer and this fall, that about half of all Americans pay no taxes. Of course, the implication is that every other person you meet is somehow a loafer who is somehow gaming the system and unfairly increasing the tax liabilities of all the hardworking, responsible Americans. But when you look at the facts are that nearly all Americans really pay taxes, and that half don't pay figure that's often bandied about relates pretty specifically to federal income taxes. That certainly doesn't take into account all the other taxes that hardworking families pay. Federal payroll taxes, excise taxes, and of course a large variety of state and local taxes. And if you actually look at state and local taxes specifically, the lowest income families on average often pay twice as big a percentage of their earnings than do the wealthiest households. And if we look for a moment at those Americans who specifically pay no federal income taxes, about half of them see their tax liability wiped out by standard deductions and personal exemptions. And there's a variety of measures that account for most of the rest, ranging from reduced tax rates on capital gains and dividends, senior citizens extra deduction and tax credit. And the refundable tax credits for working families, such as the EITC and the CTC, actually account for only about 15% of those people who pay no federal income taxes overall. Another criticism that you sometimes hear, and that it's good to be bracing for, is that ineligible people are claiming far too much money in EITC. The criticism that the credit suffers from too many errors. But the most commonly cited error rates for the EITC are overstated, according to the IRS National Taxpayer Advocate Office. The fact is that most errors appear to be the result of simply unintentional mistakes, the kind that VITA tax prep programs can help to alleviate. And overall, the Treasury Department analyses and outside experts seem to indicate that only a minority of EITC payments are due to actual fraud. The good news is that a number of very important steps already have been taken to improve EITC compliance, and these include some new rules to ensure greater competency and professionalism among commercial preparers of tax returns, as well as stepped-up IRS visits to tax prep sites and so forth. This kind of information is critical in in answering the pushback that we often will hear from policymakers and others, criticism that really has little basis in fact when you look at the facts, but criticism that kind of takes on a life of its own through sheer repetition. I ran into this personally yesterday when I was at the Illinois Capitol testifying on behalf of a proposed increase in the Illinois Earned Income Tax Credit, and out of the blue, some of the criticisms about alleged fraud and error came up, and I was grateful that I had some of the facts with me to be able to bring to bear. It's also important to know that we, in this era of job creation and job retention talk, that we have solid ground to stand on in talking about how the Earned Income Tax Credit, every dollar that families are able to retain through it, turns into about $1.58 of economic activity as families spend those dollars back at the community level at neighborhood stores and businesses and shops. And those stores, businesses, and shops are exactly the kinds of employers who have, in many cases, had to lay off employees. They're maybe looking to lay off more. When they have paying customers spending their EITC dollars locally, that's real job retention and job creation. And we need to be able to talk about that and not shy away from making those points. Turning our attention just very briefly to what we can do is the fact that, first of all, when we have these facts that we've been going over, that's very important, both for answering the pushback that you hear sometimes from folks on things like criticisms about error and fraud and so forth, and also just overall as we're trying to set up and pursue EITC programs at the local level, rural America and elsewhere. It's important to know the facts. It's important to collect family stories, the real-life concrete examples of what the EITC does for and how it can help families that are struggling to keep food on the table, keep a roof over the head, keep the utility bills paid, and so forth. And many of you are the best positioned people to be able to make those points. when we have the facts, when we have the stories, we need to be able next to share that information with our policymakers locally, state level, federal level. We need to share these things with news media. We need to share them with everybody that we can, and ensure that folks really do know what the value of the EITC is, both protecting what we've got and being able to build on it in the future. One last point I'd like to make before I end my remarks has to do with the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program itself. And we need to ensure when we're advocating on behalf of the EITC that we don't forget about this VITA set of programs as being one of the clearest avenues that many families have toward, first of all, simple awareness of the EITC's existence, and second of all, actually being able to claim the full amount of the tax credits and the refund that they're qualified for. Many of you obviously are likely part of the network of VITA programs, and the tax prep, the vital financial services that you provide to low and moderate income working families is really critical. When it comes to EITC, VITA helped nearly 700,000 families claim more than $1 billion worth of EITC help in this last year alone. As you might know, VITA is supported in part by a federal grant program that totals only $12 million nationwide. And these are crucial resources that we're really grateful to have preserved from recent budget cuts so far, but we have to continue to defend. And that defense involves the same kind of outreach to policymakers we're giving the EITC itself, similar tax credits, asking that VITA be kept strong, and also asking that an important piece of legislation gets support, the VITA Act of 2011, which is in the Senate and the House. In the Senate, it's Senate Bill 816. In the House, it's H.R. 2151. What this legislation would do is formally authorize the VITA grant program, which essentially remains a demonstration grant today. So it would codify this program for 5 years. It would increase the grants to a $30 million total to better meet the VITA program demand nationally. With a further $5 million, it would establish a national center to promote quality, excellence, and evaluation in volunteer income tax assistance. So strong, financially secure families often depend upon a strong EITC and similar tax credits. Those tax credits, in turn, depend partly upon the strength of the VITA program and their help in connecting the dots between struggling families and the assistance they're eligible for. So certainly would ask, when you advocate for the EITC, please also remember to advocate for the VITA help that families need. And you see there the contact information for me and for the National Community Tax Coalition. If you have any questions, if there's any way in which we might be able to be of assistance with resources and fact sheets and technical assistance, please do let us know. We're happy to work with folks like Center on Budget and others to help you to be able to really put up a strong program at the local level for families that need it. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Now we are actually going to turn to Dan Mayer, who is from the IRS SPEC. Dan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great.
And thanks for the time today. Yeah, I want to talk to you today about our alternative tax preparation models through SPEC. The SPEC organization, as many of you know, was initiated in the year 2000, and of course we work with many of you for promoting your tax preparation services as part of an integrated process of building assets and conducting outreach. So we know that you're a vital component of making this whole process work. The SPEC organization has a three-pronged model of tax preparation, education, outreach, and financial education asset building. And of course, we've gone to from the tax preparation part of that model. We've started to branch that out in our updated business model, where we have various components. As many of you know, the traditional model of direct assistance has been in place for over 40 years through the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance program, as well as the tax counseling for the elderly, TCE. But we've modified our business model this year to include two updated and new particular models for tax preparation. They include the facilitated self-assistance model as well as virtual VITA. So I know Roxy talked a little bit earlier about these two models, and I'm going to expound on those two models here this afternoon. One of the things that we looked at in the spec organization is the demand for services, as many of you know, for tax preparation is substantial for these volunteer tax preparation services. Our research has shown that over 19 million taxpayers, this is based on a 2009 benchmark survey, had a desire and awareness to use these services. So we know that since just about over 3 million tax returns are done through the EITC program, that there's a substantial gap there in terms of how many folks would actually come in and avail themselves of the services that you provide. As Sean noted earlier, there's over 12,000 EITC sites nationwide, and we have many, many volunteers, almost 90,000 from 2011. But we also know that there's various challenges at many of your locations with capacity issues and distance issues, and trying to reach as many folks as possible with these particular services, so that we know in an era of limited resources and volunteers, we're trying to look at alternative ways to reach as many folks as we can. And that's been the genesis of this facilitated model. Of course, another component is the financial education piece, and one of the things that we've talked about here internally in SPEC, and I know that many of you have as well, is just the notion of empowering taxpayers to do their own return and to give them that crucial component of knowledge and getting behind the screen. My chief, Ron Smith, who many of you know, talks about that whole idea of there's that Wizard of Oz type of mentality with tax preparation, where folks go to somebody that they trust to prepare the return because they're not as comfortable or familiar with going through that process. So trying to pull back that curtain a little bit and expose more individuals to the tax preparation process will give them that confidence and that knowledge and information that they need to do their own tax return. Well, facilitated self-assistance, and again, Roxy touched on this a little bit earlier, but what the vision that we have here in the SPEC organization is that this is similar to various other assisted self-service models that you might see out there in various locations, such as the grocery store, where you have a one-to-many model where individuals do take care of their own transaction for the most part, but there is an expert, a coach, an instructor, somebody there, a facilitator, available at all times to answer any questions, or if somebody runs into a problem, they can't key in the right information, or there's some problem with the system. So they're there as somebody to kind of be the training wheels or to help out if a problem arises. So this way there's a multiple channel option for assisting many individuals at once, as opposed to the direct one-on-one model that we're all familiar with. In this model, of course, the taxpayer does input their own information. They're in control. They're in front of the keyboard, and they're actually going through the various screens and inputting the data. And of course, they can consult with a certified volunteer at the minimum of the certified basic level at any time if they have a question. And of course, we've had various conversations internally and externally about what the best model is, and obviously that's a choice that many of you would make as part of your experience. One of the options is obviously as a triage type of model, where an individual comes in, you have a traditional VITA setup, but then there's also the option to do a facilitated model. In addition, there's also the ability to do just a standalone model, a new tax preparation site. It could be at a high school, college, or university, somewhere where there's already a component of individuals who have the experience and have that knowledge of navigating the computer, but they just have questions on the tax administration side. One of the benefits, of course, for larger sites, it can help to prepare additional returns, can help to target those taxpayers who really need that direct assistance, those with the more complex returns. Total of 70%, whether they're are single filers, whether they're single or a head of household. We have a large number of folks that come through the VITA program that are single taxpayers. Now, obviously, many of those still have more complex returns, but a large number of those have simpler returns with just one or two W-2s and just a couple of other income items. So that's the target audience that we're looking at, as well as looking for new audiences such as students, populations that have the financial aid issues that were discussed earlier. Again, reducing wait times during peak is another benefit, and then giving taxpayers a choice of service if you're co-located with a traditional VITA site. What happens with this process is if you already have a traditional VITA site and you want to come on board with a facilitated site, then you would request that through your spec relationship manager and get another SIDN that would just apply to that particular model, so that we can make sure that we track the count of the facilitated return. For taxpayers, the benefits, including leveraging their current computer skills, they've already got that, and we're just trying to add that additional benefit of learning more about the tax input side, access to brand name tax software. We have a number of companies involved with our FAST program, which I'll discuss in a minute. Again, consulting with a certified volunteer at all times, and then increasing that knowledge so that they can eventually file that return on their own. We look at that as a benefit across the board, where we're empowering a taxpayer to make that choice down the road, where they say, hey, I'm going to go online and do my own return for little or no cost. How does this model differ from traditional VITA or TCE? Well, there's no EFIN application necessary. The online EFIN of the provider will be used in these cases to transmit those returns. And again, since the taxpayer inputs their own return, there's no required intake or quality review process, although we have learned from many partners that some sort of a screening process to determine who's best suited for this tax preparation, as well as a cursory quality review at the end to make sure that the return is as correct as it can be seen based on the information provided. The FAST program is the Free Assisted Self-Service Tax Preparation model, where the IRS Spec Office has partnered with the Free File Alliance, a group of about 20 companies, to provide their services in a total of 29 states for free tax preparation. Depending on what state you're in, you may have between 2 and 5 providers available in those states to give a choice of service for these services, and the offers do vary by company. Other FSA models that we have available are through the Beehive, which is linked with the One Economy organization, as well as ICANN and the Benefit Bank. We do have a model in every state, and if you do contact your spec relationship manager or territory manager, they'd be happy to walk you through what the options are in your location. We're very happy that we do have an option in all the states. This is kind of a rudimentary map of the options that we have available. There may be more than one option in your state, but at the minimum, you can see that there's various options, including the FAST ones in orange, as well as the Beehive states in blue. But there's obviously, you may have more than one choice in your state.
Hey, Dan, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 minute because we're running short on time. And so I just wanted to encourage people that if you do have questions, please type them into the questions box. And if we don't have time to answer questions during this session, which we probably won't, I will take those questions and get them to the presenters and get those responses back to you after the webinar. So very good. Please feel free to write in your responses, and we're going to take another 5 minutes and go to 2:55.
Okay, great.
So carry on, carry on.
Thank you. And again, for the filing season last year, it was a very slow uptake, but we had a late start, and we're very encouraged that this year we'll have a lot more participation. We're probably right around 400 sites that have been signed up for 2012. Again, if you want to get started, please contact your spec relationship manager for additional information, and we'll work a way to get you to participate. Obviously, major considerations will be logistics, computers, hours of operation, and marketing, because obviously this is a different, in many ways, this may be a different taxpayer from those who are currently coming to your sites. We want to make sure that we market to the fact that you're going to do your own return and not do a bait and switch where somebody comes in to a self-prep only site and thinks that they're going to have a volunteer there to actually do the return for them. And we're just going to do a quick run through of the virtual model. Again, Roxy highlighted this earlier. Again, one of the genesis of this is identifying from the rural initiative in terms of being able to reach additional folks over long distances to find alternative ways to do tax preparation so that we can kind of bring the tax return process as close to people as we possibly can. Of course, with the lack of certified volunteers, we're trying to again increase efficiencies at both the preparation site as well as bringing folks involved with the intake site that do not have to be certified. So assisting with transportation barriers and language barriers and hours of availability as well, the virtual model, it gives us an opportunity to overcome those challenges. As Roxy mentioned, there's an intake site and a preparation site, and basically what we're doing is not, the taxpayer does not have to be in the room at the same time as or the same location as the person who's actually preparing the return. That's essentially what the virtual model is, and there's various ways of actually getting that information back and forth. There's video conferencing, there's faxing and emailing, and getting that data to that preparation site, and then having that conversation with the preparer to get that return completed. Again, you can expand service. You can allocate your volunteer time. If you get return information in, then you can allocate that to your volunteers to make sure that that they have time to do that return. Maybe when it's a little less busy in that location, that they can actually take that time later on to do a return through a virtual model, and it requires less physical space. The volunteer is not required to be certified at the intake site because they're just facilitating that process for the preparer in the other location. Minimal training required, and they do have to sign a volunteer agreement just like everybody else. There is a SIDN required for each intake site, and it's profiled as a virtual site in our system, and there's no EFIN required for the intake site. So essentially, they'll verify the identity of the taxpayer and set up the appointment for that individual at the intake site, obtain the requirements, coordinate the schedule, and work with the transmission site for getting that information to the preparation site to be processed. The preparation site will obviously do the return and file the site requirements in the publication 1084, and they'll use the SIDN assigned to the intake site, as well as having one EFIN, whether it's virtual or traditional. And I'll skip over here. They're going to this screen very quickly just kind of gives you an idea of what this process may look like. It doesn't have to use these programs, but again, it's just removing that taxpayer from the actual site where the return is prepared, and basically bringing more services to folks in more remote areas. And again, just making sure that security is always an issue in terms of making sure that that information is securely sent from the intake site to the transmission site. Okay, and we talked a little bit about benefits. Again, cost savings and transportation and benefits to the taxpayer, not having to go large distances and maybe going to a partner site closer by to get the return done. There's obviously some additional costs in terms of getting the technology to make this happen. Again, we're here to support the process with our relationship managers and to link partners to make sure that this works. And that's it. If you have any questions, we have all the contact information on the back. Again, I'm Dan Mayer from the spec office, and my chief, and we've got Becky Harrell also from our national partnerships, as well as some of the partners who have done the virtual model successfully in Minnesota and Utah. So thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot, Dan. And we will, again, make this presentation available online as well as the recording. Please, again, send in your questions, and I will send those on to the presenters, get responses, and send those on to you. So thanks for participating. If you want to stick around for the third session, which is going to be 3 real EITC success stories from the ground, please stick around. That will begin at 3, so 3 minutes. Thanks. And welcome to the RuFES webinar series, mini-series. I'd like to welcome you to its open season on taxes, prepare to run a first-rate rural EITC tax campaign. I know some of you were in the last two sessions, so please be patient as I go through the basics for some new folks on the call. This webinar series is part of a larger set of RuFES webinars for our RuFES Action Network, which is open to anyone who wants to participate and is supported by the Annie Casey Foundation. We decided to do this webinar a little differently as a mini-series to get both deeper and broader on the topic. As of yesterday, more than 100 people had registered for the webinar mini-series, and 92 had registered for this session, some of which were groups. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available online with the presentation materials after the webinar, so you'll be able to view them in your own time. Today's topic is the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, which has provided low-income Americans with a financial boost since 1975. The use of EITC and the child tax credit and other tax credits is among the most popular and effective strategies rural communities use to promote family economic success. In this session, presenters will put out 3 rural EITC success stories. We'll hear from the White Earth Investment Initiative, the Northeast South Dakota CAP, and the Southern University Law Center. This RuFES webinar is part of the RuFES network, which is based on the RuFES framework, which is shown here. And the RuFES framework is built on 3 family-focused goals: earn it, keep it, and grow it. So today's webinar is focused on EITC, which is falls within the keep it goal, which is working families have access to and make good choices that safeguard their family income and lower their cost of living, forging stable and predictable financial lives. Specifically, the EITC targets 3 family-focused goals. Families use reasonably priced services, accounts, and products for their savings, checking, and other financial transactions, that families file their tax returns annually, and that families secure all tax benefits for which they qualify, starting with those that reward work, the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. So a couple notes on participation. You all are on mute at the moment to reduce any music or barking dogs or any other background noise. If you have any clarifying questions during the presentations, please use your questions box in your webinar control panel to type in your question. During the presentations, if I see those clarifying questions, I will find the time right time to pose them and ask the presenters to clarify. If they're more cosmic questions or larger content questions, please hold on to those until after the 3 presentations. We are going to 4:15, so we'll have a little bit more time for questions in this session. If you have a question, you can type it into the questions box in the control panel, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the little hand icon in your control panel. I will see that, call on you, and unmute you, and you can ask your question live. If you have any technical problems, you can also use the question box, but if it's a really big issue, please email or call my colleague, Mr. Kelly Malone, at kelly.malone@aspenins.org, or 202-736-5804. So getting on to this 3rd session, Rural EITC Success Stories, we have 3 fabulous presenters today. First is Sarah Castro from the Midwest Minnesota CDC, and she's going to be talking about the White Earth Investment Initiative. Then we have Paula Jensen from the Northeast South Dakota CAP, who will be talking about their efforts there. And then we finally have John Pierre from the Southern University Law Center, who will be talking about their Path to Financial Independence project. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Castro. Sarah, are you there?
Yes.
Great.
Well, I'm very happy to present today. Thank you very much. I work for Midwest Minnesota Community Development Corporation and its subsidiary White Earth Investment Initiative, specifically on the volunteer income tax assistance site. And I've been with the organization about 8 years now, 6 of those years working for the tax site. I think, there we go. Our subsidiaries was set up solely to assist White Earth Reservation. We're a smaller CDC of our parent company, Midwest Minnesota Community Development Corporation, and we primarily do affordable lending and development services, and that's where the tax service falls in. We started the tax site based on information that was provided to us by Minnesota Children's Defense Fund. They shared with us statistics that the IRS calculated in 2003 about earned income tax credit dollars lost to refund anticipation loans and other pay-per-pair fees. And as you can see, these are the communities that are located on White Earth Reservation. This is typical of many of the reservations across the country, and South Dakota has actually had a higher rate of RAL usage, but I believe we were a close second. The largest village on White Earth Reservation is Nadawash, and of the individuals and families eligible for the earned income tax credit, 76% of those families got a loan in anticipation of their refund. So this had become standard practice over the years, and there seemed to be a need for a free service to serve these communities. And I should say that statewide, RAL usage at this time was 21.5% of earned income tax credit eligible families. So these were very high numbers. The IRS spec office we work with is out of Fargo, North Dakota, and they had 6 years ago, they had seen a need for a voluntary income tax assistance site on White Earth Reservation, and they had been working for a couple of years to try to find a partner to do that. We were convinced that it would be a good idea to get involved, so we partnered with the local community action agency that was already providing a tax counseling for the elderly program in a community that was just south of White Earth Reservation. And, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah, can I just break in real quickly? Can you explain RALs for people who might not know what refund anticipation loans are?
Sure. When a taxpayer goes to get their tax return done at many paid preparation firms, they will offer, you can get your refund within, I think, 1 to 2 business days if you pay a fee, and it's in the form of a loan. And they set up, the paid preparer firms have a dummy bank account it's a temporary bank account that's set up. The refund goes into that account. The loan gets repaid, and then the taxpayer gets the remaining amount. And fees have varied throughout the years on these loans, and they had become so commonplace on White Earth Reservation that a lot of people didn't realize they could get their refund without getting a loan. That's not typical in every community. They're offered nationwide. H&R Block last year pulled back from that product. Jackson Hewitt continued offering it, and I'll be talking more about our alternative to that product later in the presentation. Are there any other questions about the loan?
No, go ahead. Thank you very much. Oh, and I guess the point is that the fees are exorbitant, and so that's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, even throughout the years, the fees got cut down, but at one point, you could easily spend $600 to get your refund on this loan. An example in our community. So we worked with the local AARP program, and they mentored us. Actually, I was one of their volunteers the first year, and then the second year we recruited 10 community volunteers, and the IRS spec came out and trained the volunteers for a week-long training. It was about 25 hours of tax law, and we survived. And then got to start the site. The Mojave Community Action Agency e-filed the returns for us, and also came out for the first few weeks and did reviews to ensure accuracy. And then Accountability Minnesota helped us become an independent volunteer income tax assistance site the following year, and we've been receiving technical assistance from them ever since. This is a picture of White Earth Reservation. It doesn't show it very well in Minnesota, but it's a very large part of northwest Minnesota. The population is 9,500, and 3,500 households live in that area. So we complete approximately 500 tax returns each filing season, which is 14% of the population. This is a picture of our site at Shooting Star Casino in Mahnomen. We co-located our site at the Shooting Star because it's the largest employer on the reservation. They can provide us, they're open 24 hours. They can provide us with IT support, security, all sorts of wonderful things. So they've been a really important partner of ours. We operate two sites, the Shooting Star Casino, and this last year we started a site at a local community college, Minnesota State Community and Technical College. We serve households that have $60,000 or less adjusted gross income, which is slightly higher than the traditional VITA scope, and that is because we made the case that we're in a low wealth area, so even if the incomes are stronger, there isn't a lot in savings, and lots of families are supporting households that have been long-term unemployed. In some of the Native American communities, there's very, very high unemployment. We're open 4 days a week, and we're open very long hours on those days at the Shooting Star. And last year we piloted a self-preparation option in partnership with Beehive. This is a picture of our volunteers and 4 paid staff. We have 1 full-time staff, that's myself, 2 seasonal staff, and then my coworker, who is the loan officer for White Earth Investment Initiative, also has been instrumental in the tax program. And as I said, we started a new site this year at the college. This year we will be doing the site coordination, volunteer recruitment, and marketing. And we're sharing what we've learned in the 6 years that we've been operating the Shooting Star site. And we're also hoping to attract accounting students to not only work at the college, but to travel and work at our main site at the Shooting Star. We've provided a number of other services at the tax site. One of our more successful services has been opening up savings accounts. We have an affiliate bank, community development bank, that allowed us to open accounts on site for a number of years. Unfortunately, their software conversion won't allow us to open the accounts anymore. Hopefully this will change in the future. But we were able to open up a number of accounts, and that I think we did that over 4 years. We have the Children's Defense Fund benefit screening product, and we plan to use that more heavily this year to get all of our volunteers trained on how to use that so that we have a consistent message that that is available. We also benefit from being a National Community Tax Coalition affiliate, which means we can use their online university, and they have a couple of different courses that volunteers can take and get certified. 2 of the courses are FAFSA assistance and budget coaching. So we'd like to get as many of our volunteers trained in that as well. The FAFSA assistance we want to provide at the college location and the budget coaching at the Shooting Star location to see how much take-up we can get this year. And then we always promote the savings bond through the tax form. These are some of the other development services that we offer that I would say most closely linked to our tax service. We believe in financial education for all ages, and that is really separate from any products that we offer and profit from. We really try to build the knowledge through these different services. This has been our long-term partner, our affiliate bank. They're located on White Earth Reservation. They're a certified CDFI, and they have enabled us to provide a unique product to our tax customers. We've offered since 2008 an alternative refund anticipation loan. And this was a result of a partnership with Accountability Minnesota. They developed the Express Refund Loan and Savings Program and knew that we were an area that had a lot of these tax loans, and so sought us out to be one of their pilot projects. We were able to significantly expand our VITA program as a result of the product. By significant, we went from 380 returns to 520 returns that year, and got a customer base that we hadn't really reached before, the customer base that just could not wait for their refund. And that was really who we were looking to serve. We have had to develop a slightly different model from what we originally had in 2008. Last year, the IRS removed the debt indicator, which allowed us to see in 24 hours when the return was accepted, we could see if the taxpayer had any debts that would impact their refund, and or could possibly impact their refund. And so if we could check at that point. This year, since that was removed, we used a self-inquiry process where the taxpayer inquired into their debts through an IRS 1-800 number and a U.S. Department of Treasury automated number. And the taxpayer knew at the tax site, they would left knowing if they had any debts and knew whether or not it was probable that they would be able to get the loan. Then if the customer was able to get the loan, the next day they would go into the bank and sign the required paperwork. The bank will place a hold on, I should say, if you're getting a loan, you have to have a community development bank savings account, because that's the mechanism in which the bank would get repaid. They place a hold on the account for the amount of the loan, and then the loan is repaid when the taxpayer's refund is direct deposited. We had this past year a minimum loan amount of $250 and a maximum amount of $2,000. We were able to provide the loan dollars in 2 to 3 business days. Almost always it was 2 business days, and the fee was $25. It was a flat fee no matter when the taxpayer's refund entered the account. And these are, once again, the reasons that we continue to provide the product. It's an emergency loan, and we are able to encourage savings because they do have to have that savings account, and they're not able to get the loan in the amount of their entire refund. The rest is direct deposit into that savings account and becomes available in the 1 to 2 weeks. So the hope is some of that savings remains in the account. oh, let's see, I have to go back here. Okay. The real challenges that we face, one, volunteer recruitment. Every year, it's a challenge to recruit volunteers. We hope that our partnership with the college enables a more consistent volunteer base. We also have incredibly dedicated community volunteers that have sustained the program. Many of them started the program, and they're leaders and professionals in the community. Transportation has been an issue for our volunteers and for our customers. Our volunteers drive on an estimated hour to get to the tax site, and so we've been able to reimburse their mileage costs, and that has helped tremendously in volunteer recruitment and sustaining our volunteer base. And the customer transportation issues have been addressed a bit by the tribe. They've been able to put in a transit service that's $1 for a ride, and as long as the hours work out for our taxpayers, they should be able to get to our location and back home. Also, because we co-locate with the largest employer, the majority are coming in for work anyway, so we're just one extra stop after work or before work. The struggle we've had, the casino has been just a wonderful partner, and we really don't know what we'd do if we didn't have that location. At the same time, we never have a permanent room, and so every week we're taking our equipment down and setting up in a different room because we're located in their event center. So every Friday night they have some singer coming in, and we have to move because the high rollers need that space or whatever the issue is. And finally, I think the challenge that lots of rural sites face is that how do you maintain efficiency? I know this has been addressed earlier, and how to incorporate multiple services with fewer people. You know, we don't necessarily always have a screener. We don't have, we don't have large numbers of personnel at the site to divide duties. So some of the urban models are hard for us to imitate, and we've had to come up with our own. And finally, I would say our success has been that we've been able to increase our tax returns from 50 to 500 in a matter of years. We know we're saving taxpayers dollars. We've always emphasized tax education and quality, and that we have noticed a difference in our tax customers, that they understand why they have a refund or why they might owe, because we've given them more of a tax background. We don't just give them a number at the end. We've also been successful in sustaining volunteers. We've had 5 volunteers that have been with the program for 4+ years, and this contributes greatly to the quality of the service. And I think that's all I have, so thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. We're now going to turn to Paula Jensen. Paula, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. I'm just giving you control.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name's Paula Jensen, and I'm the NSCAP VITA coordinator. I've been the coordinator since 2008. And I'm going to start my presentation today with a story of one of my personal clients that I help. And back in 2008, when I was a brand new preparer, she came to me as a single mom with 2 kids. She was renting a house. She was making $21,000 a year and had some child support on top of that. She was interested in purchasing the house that she was living in. Now, the Northeast South Dakota Community Action Program is focused on helping people in the areas of housing, community, and economic development. And we have 25+ programs. That includes our VITA program that can assist people with a lot of different things. and we utilize that a lot when we're working with our VITA clients. So knowing that she was low income and knowing she wanted to purchase this house, I connected her with our IDA coordinator. And an IDA is a savings plan that's a match savings plan where she could save for a down payment up to $8,000 on her home. And it was a 3-to-1 match at the time. So during that year, unknown to me, she was working on her IDA, she was taking homebuyer education, and in 2009 when I met with her to do her taxes again, she informed me she'd purchased a home and would qualify for the first-time homebuyer credit, we discovered. Our organization had also mortgaged or helped her mortgage, get her mortgage for her home, and she had made some improvements to the home with part of that loan. So in 2009, she qualified for the first-time homebuyer credit, her energy credits, and her EITC, and her total refund was about $11,000 that year. She took $6,000 of that and put it away in a savings account for the next year because she had a goal of remodeling her bathroom. When I met with her in 2010, she still had that $6,000 in her savings and was anticipating a sizable EITC refund with her 2010 refund. And with those two things together, she was able to finish her bathroom remodel, and our organization also helps with weatherization. So she was able to apply for that and make energy improvements to her home to be more energy efficient. Now, that's the way we like to work with most of our clients. Since 2005, we have been a VITA site, and since that time, in 2005, we did 35 tax returns, and we had served on the map you're seeing, the light blue area. And we didn't do any outreach at that time. We had one permanent location located in Roberts County and another location in Day County where a neighboring board of directors lived, and she was assisting with our VITA program. Today, we are now serving 51 counties in rural South Dakota, and we're this year just beginning the South Dakota VITA Coalition in coordination with Interlakes Community Action Program and the Rural Office of Community Service, which is also a community action program. With the benefits of an IRS VITA grant that we received, and it is a multi-year grant for this year, we are going to be able to expand this program to most of South Dakota. Our catalyst for action was our board member, Deb. Back in 2005, she had a passion for the clients that we serve, and she also had a history of bookkeeping and accounting. So she went ahead and she was the one who started our program in 2005. And in 2011, last year, 40% of clients that we served qualified for earned income tax credit. Most of the people we serve are lower income. Well over 50% of them are. Our main location is located in Simpson, South Dakota, which is on a Native American reservation. And so about 43% of the people the clients that we have in that office are Native American. Some of our program facts. We are a spec partnership and have been since 2005. We've now expanded our VITA staff from 2 to 6 tax preparers. We work on a bare bones staff during the tax year, which runs for us from January 15th through April 30th. And during that time, we're open Monday through Friday during the day hours and sometimes in the evenings. We've expanded our program greatly as far as outreach is considered since 2005. This year we'll be able to provide 28 outreach sites, and those outreach sites I'll talk about in a little bit, but we do them in a variety of ways to make our program reach the maximum amount of people. We provide services throughout the year, not just during the tax season. We provide services amending tax returns. We do a lot of advocacy between the Taxpayer Advocacy Office in our area for people who have tax liability issues. We really build a relationship with our clients, and they call us whenever they need assistance. Last year we were able to prepare 552 tax returns, and 52% of those were done at our main site based out of Simpson and the outreach area there, and we hope this year to do about 670 tax returns based on our goal with the IRS. We were able to capture about $350,000 worth of earned income tax credit last year, and total refunds were up around the $550,000 mark. Excuse me, I quoted that wrong. $876,000 of total refunds that was put back into the economy of eastern South Dakota. We also provide other services like I talked about in our story. When we're specialists in economic development and housing and community development, so we have access to a lot of partners within the entire state. If we can't help someone with a program, we can find someone who will help them. We provide budgeting services. Last year we implemented 2 financial education workshops for our VITA clients, and that has continued throughout the year, and we've provided an additional 6 financial education workshops because of the success of those last tax season. We manage a rural non-face-to-face tax preparation program, which is one of our most unique programs. We host last year 2 FAST kiosks. It was the IRS pilot program where it's the self-preparation, and we're on hand. That didn't take off as quickly as we would have liked it to last year, but we're doing a little more marketing this year and hope to educate our own clients so that they can feel comfortable to continue preparing their tax returns and possibly preparing them on site with us on their own, and it gives them a lot of encouragement. Our target population, like I talked about before, is rural and Native American. Of the counties that are served here in the 51 counties that I showed you earlier on the map, the majority, like 70% of the population in that area is considered rural. There's one metropolitan area located in Sioux Falls in the southeastern corner of the state. Our community outreach, we reach out to communities of about 5,000 people or less, and they have no other VITA sites in their communities. We do not compete with local VITA sites. If there are other VITA sites in communities, we often refer people to them. If they call us from a remote rural area, we always look to our chart provided by the IRS first to refer them to a local site. We're lucky enough each year to partner with 2 local credit unions to provide funding for our VITA program. We also work with municipalities, large employers, and some educational facilities in our area. We utilize volunteers from some of those places. The large employers are more than willing to put some of our envelope stuffers into their payroll, and some of those employers we even go on site and do a day of outreach for them so that their employees can have free tax preparation. So our outreach strategies, we've really had to be creative and try some different things to see what works best. And once we figure those out, we try to continue those. We have built relationships with a lot of communities that have us come back year after year, typically for a one-day site. Sometimes it's 2, depending on the demand. But those are our community outreach days. We also, like I said, added the free assisted self-service tax preparation kiosk program last year in 2 sites in the larger populated areas where we had someone on staff who could assist the customer to complete their tax return. our rural non-face-to-face program, which I'll talk about in a minute. Our financial education workshops help recruit people to the VITA program. We provide taxpayer education. Like I said, annually, we work throughout the year with people to educate them about just filing a tax return. Many of them haven't filed for years, and we will file their past 3 tax returns to get them the refunds that are due to them, and then get them caught up if they have tax liability issues, so that we can proceed with a clean record from there on out, and they continue to come back to our site. We give referrals, and we utilize staff and volunteers in other geographic locations. Our rural non-face-to-face is kind of like a virtual VITA site that they talked about earlier on some of the webinar today, but we actually do it through the mail. A lot of the places that we reach out to in the remote rural areas maybe don't have a computer, don't have internet access, so we just actually create a tax kit that is on our website, that if they have access or can go to the local library and get that printed out, or we will mail the tax kit to them. They complete the checklist and insert the documents that we need to prepare their tax return. They mail it back to us. We review it and go through a phone interview with them, prepare their tax return, send it back. When they receive it, we go ahead and call them and do a outtake interview with them and make sure everything's okay and make sure they understand what they're signing, and they sign their form, they send it back to us, and we do e-file. And we always like to follow up with those clients as well to make sure that they've received their refund or different things like that. And it has been a successful way for us to reach some of those many outlying areas, since we are located way in the eastern, northeast part of the state, and some of our clients are as much as 300 miles away. We do have the rural challenges, geographic proximity. Like I said, 300 miles. They may not have a local VITA site that they can get to. They may live out in the country, an hour and a half from a town where there is a VITA site, so it's just easier for them to use our rural non-face-to-face. We advertise that in local newspapers with some of our educational pieces that we put in the local newspapers during the tax season. We hang flyers in communities that we have partnerships with to let them know that we're there to help them. Volunteer staffing, we do mostly use our own staff who have come sometimes from colleges who have VITA programs and have trained those students along the way, and we have hired them, and they've continued now to help us work with the VITA program. Volunteers are rare. One of our VITA sites with the Interlakes Community Action Program, they actually have a college located in their main site location, and they use some of the students there as well. Funding is also always a challenge, but this year with a successful award of a multi-year grant from the IRS, that will assist us tremendously to kind of be able to plan ahead for the future. But it's always an issue every year, filing or trying to apply for different types of grants and assistance to help us get through the tax year. Marketing, we take a multifaceted approach, and we develop a actual marketing plan each year, and we kind of use it as our marketing Bible each week and make sure we're reaching out to people as much as we can. We use radio ads. Our local radio stations will match ads for us, so they always double the amount of ads that they run for the dollar amount that we pay them because we're a nonprofit organization. We run weekly news releases educating people about tax changes, tax laws, tax credits that are available to them, why they should file a tax return, or filing status seems to be an issue in a lot of our communities. We use as much free advertising as we can, and like I said, we use our large employers and financial institutions to use our statement stuffers, and we also, like I said, use local websites and other kinds of flyers that we hang up for people to contact us. Our success is like our story I told you at the beginning of my presentation. Our success is our client base, and the ones they keep returning to us. And our numbers have doubled each year since I've started with the VITA program, and it's exciting to see the number of people that are saving money by not doing the rapid anticipated loans that Sarah talked about earlier. They're saving sometimes $400 to $600, which easily is a month's worth of groceries for some of these families. We're able to give them referrals so that they can get other services if they need them. We offer services all 12 months out of the year to help them with not just their tax preparation but other tax issues as well. We pride ourselves in helping our clients become self-sufficient, to feel confident about their budgeting practices, or eliminating tax liability so they can have a fresh start and not having to worry about that in the future, and educating them and giving them just the confidence that they need in their daily lives, and sometimes help them build their wealth through home purchases or different things like that. And our program has grown because of that. And I thank you for this time to share our success with you.
Thanks a lot, Paula. That was great. Now we're going to turn to John Pierre. John, you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
All right. We can hear you.
Great, great. Good afternoon. My presentation is going to be about our project that we got started about 3 years ago called Path to Financial Independence. And we'll go to the first slide if you don't mind. Basically, Path to Financial Independence serves low-income working families from rural and urban communities. The outcomes that we want is we want to reduce costs to file income taxes. Essentially what we're doing is providing a no-cost service through VITA. And we also want to increase access of our participants, our families, to earn income tax credits and other tax credits like child tax credits, and increase awareness and the availability of various match savings programs and asset building programs. Next slide. As an overview, basically what we're doing is creating what we call a single umbrella asset building collaboration. We provide VITA, we provide information about earned income tax credits, and we try to get people to make sure that they do not miss out on the EITC and other child tax credits. And we provide information and or access to individual development accounts and other asset building tools. We try to emphasize financial education and asset building, and our collaborators are rural-based and urban-based minority-serving institutions. We have historically black colleges and universities involved. We have Hispanic-serving institutions, and we have predominantly black institutions. And the other collaborator, of course, would be the Internal Revenue Service, the spec offices. They work closely with a number of institutions that we work with. What we try to do is we sort of leverage a historic service model. In other words, many of the minority-serving institutions serve low-income individuals in rural and urban communities. So now we're just extending that service in a different way. We want to increase awareness of programs to create wealth and gain skills in financial management in rural and urban communities. And we want the low-income families in those communities to increase family wealth and improve the quality of their lives. Now, next slide. In terms of our major goals, first of all, we want to engage low to moderate income youth and families in an effort to grow wealth in rural and urban communities. We want to provide alternatives to payday lending and all these predatory lending services. And we want to look at some type of comprehensive strategy that may later serve as a national model. And then we want to link programs together that provide a more comprehensive array of services. So, for example, at two of our partner institutions, they operate low-income taxpayers clinics, so that in essence, not only do our returns filed at those institutions, they actually work with families in dealing with disputes with the Internal Revenue Service, and that would be at North Carolina Central University Law School and Southern University Law Center, where I am the Vice Chancellor. We able to encourage North Carolina Central to start a tax clinic, and the great thing about that is that although they're located in Durham, North Carolina, the IRS grant requires them to serve rural communities all over the state of North Carolina and our communities around Durham, North Carolina. The same thing with our law center. Our low-income taxpayer clinic serves all rural communities throughout the state of Louisiana, and also some in Mississippi. So we even cross lines with respect to that. The other part I want to talk about in terms of implementing a comprehensive strategy, you heard previously the discussion in Minnesota about using the university to help create a VITA site. What we eventually would like to see is that university students in rural and urban communities work with those communities to help them with an array of services that deal with financial literacy and education, free tax prep, and avoiding predatory lending practices. Next slide. Now, so when we look at our sort of objectives, what we do is that we develop formalized strategies and learn lessons from our experience to promote program expansion at other MSIs, minority serving institutions. We started with 8 minority serving institutions. We then expanded to 23, and this year we will have 32 minority serving institutions involved. And then, of course, what we want to be able to do is develop and expand asset and wealth building program initiatives at minority serving institutions. Of course, included in that is VITA centers, individual development accounts, which are match saving programs and other asset building programs, and then earned income tax credit efforts as well as child tax credits. And we also want to build an infrastructure for the MSI network so that minority serving institutions can collaborate and they can look at different models for training, using best practices and research-based strategies that help build wealth. We also want to always involve our institutions in identifying wealth-building resources, and we want to link those minority-serving institutions to funding streams because resources are always difficult to get. So we try to get them with resources on a national, state, and local level. Now, next slide, please. Now, you would say, well, why minority-serving institutions? Well, most of them, if you look across the country, are located in limited resource urban and rural communities. Most of their service population is low to moderate income residents, and there already exist relationships between those minority-serving institutions and those communities. And we believe that minority-serving institutions have a cultural sensitivity that will help best serve those individuals and those targeted populations. Now, next slide, please. What is the strategic approach? Well, the approach is this. We want to develop and expand asset and wealth building program initiatives by building and creating more VITA centers at places that didn't have them before or they've gone dormant for a while, to incorporate asset building programs at those places, to make people aware of various tax credits like earned income tax credit, child tax credit, making work pay tax credit, all these different kind of tax credits. We want to reduce the individual need for use of check cash in places payday loans, refund anticipation loans, we've heard about RALs, and any other predatory lending instrument that's out there. And we want to increase the capacity of the collaborating institutions and sites by doing a lot of training. We do, all of our folks at all the different schools get a lot of training with the IRS, and we're working with a student population that's a pretty good, intelligent population in terms of volunteers. We're always identifying wealth-building resources, and of course, as I said before, we are definitely trying to make sure that our partners get linked to funding streams. Now you say, okay, that's wonderful. Tell me, what are your outcomes? Well, here's been the outcomes, and I think they're pretty substantial. In the 2011 filing season, more than 16,000 free returns were filed that generated more than $22 million in refunds. We, of course, increased the number of network participants. We talked about that. 70% of our partners expanded the number of tax returns that were prepared at their sites. Some of them increased the returns by 100 to 200%. 70% of our partners were able to link at least one IDA or asset building program and or EITC component into their program. Now, they did it through collaborations. For example, Southern University Law Center works with the Southern University Center for Social Research. That particular entity provides IDA program for the whole state of Louisiana through a grant and service contract with the state of Louisiana. So that's one way that we do it. In other locations, and in that IDA program in Louisiana, there's a 4-to-1 match. In other locations, those particular entities actually work through coalitions where someone in the coalition may provide IDA type services and or other asset building. For example, in one of our partners in Maryland, Prince George's County, they actually run a housing counseling center. They help people deal with foreclosure problems and also work with helping individuals save their homes through some type of, I guess, refinancing options or loan modifications. At the Southern University Center for Social Research, in that 4-to-1 match situation, many people are buying homes for the first time. And the great thing about it is that 99% of those individuals do not lose their homes because of the financial literacy and education training and the home buyer education training. We ask that our partners, and we work with our partners, to make a submission of a grant of some type to at least one external funder. And we also know that more than 5,000 returns that we file qualify for the earned income tax credit, and those that qualified were generated more than $4 million in earned income tax credit refunds. In addition to that, more than 3,000 of those returns filed qualified for the child tax credit that exceeded $3.5 million. Now, what are the benefits to our collaborators? Next slide, please. The benefit to our collaborators is this, is that we do program assessments and we identify what the needs are for our new partners. Every year we bring on new partners, and this year we're going to bring on 10 new partners. We are able to resource out or collaborate on education outreach and training. We learn what best practices are to implement VITA sites so everybody can rely on each other. Normally, we talk to each other every 2 weeks in groups to figure out what each one is doing that's different. One of our collaborators, Coppin State University, actually started 2 high school VITA sites. This started one and is going to start a second, so they're going to have 2 high school VITA sites. And this is important in rural communities. The other thing, too, is that many of our collaborators have what we call mobile sites in rural communities in addition to the urban communities, and they also are set up or located in the rural communities. And when we talk about the benefits, we all learn lessons from each other to help develop our programs better. And then we look at national organizations such as the Center for Working Families and National Community Tax Coalition, the Kellogg Foundation, to help us identify ways that we can do what we do better and sources of funding. Now, are we sustainable? We are sustainable because student volunteers provide the vital services to low to moderate income families in rural and urban settings. And we have training provided to us by the IRS, and the program components such as VITA and EITC are assisted by a lot of state agencies that want to, especially in these challenging times, service the communities in their states and help people be able to access the benefits that come with EITC, other tax credits, and match savings program. And there's also sort of a natural interest from a national perspective to link people with asset building programs, IDA programs, and the earned income tax credit. Next slide, please. And what we found is that there's a great buy-in and interest in wealth-building programs across the country, whether it be from foundations, national organizations, federal and state agencies. We believe that we could develop advocacy processes that could help develop state policies that support the combination of VITA, EITC, IDA, or asset-building programs. And we believe that putting those components under one umbrella creates a program that can be replicated in all states across the country, which would be even more beneficial to those people living in poverty in rural and urban areas. And another program implication is the development and participation in asset-building coalitions. Most of our partners now are part of an asset-building coalition, either at the local level or at the state level. Now let's talk about who our network of partners are to give you an idea of where we're going. You can see that we have a number of different partners in rural and urban areas, Southern University, Coppin State University, etc. You can see the list. Some of them include law schools because law schools want to get students involved in helping individuals from low and moderate income families in social justice. So the idea of doing free tax returns is sort of a social justice initiative. There's a benefit to the students because they get experiential learning. They get to learn how to deal with clients at even the law schools at other universities because many of these students are accounting students. They're going to be professionals. So they get hands-on experience. So it's a win-win situation for the community. The community gets valuable services. Now, one thing I want to pay particular note or attention to is this. When you look at the location of that, you'll see, well, some are in urban areas and some are in rural areas. But, for example, Central New Mexico Community College, even though they're located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they actually serve individuals in the state of New Mexico statewide in rural and urban areas. Some schools, like, for example, Southern University Law Center, we actually do mobile sites in rural areas. Many of our partners do, and some of them are located directly in the heart of rural areas. For example, like South Carolina State University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi, Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi, Prairie View A&M in Prairie View, Texas, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore in Prince Anne, Maryland. So you can see that we have a healthy mix. West Virginia State University services people in rural and urban areas all over West Virginia. So you can see we've got, we believe, are healthy mixes of rural and urban areas. Another example of a rural area is Grambling State University in Grambling, Louisiana. Our network runs all the way from Maryland to New Mexico. So the institutions involved in our network are in Maryland, Washington, D.C., North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and New Mexico. And they do incredible work. We've added states of Tennessee and Missouri to our network. So they do incredible work. If you want to know more about our path to financial independence, you can contact me, or we have a website, www.subr.edu/PTFI, or you can contact Dr. Alma Thornton, who is the director of the Center for Social Research, at the contact number there. Thank you for your time and allowing us to make this presentation to you.
Thanks a lot, John. We're now going to take some questions, and actually we already have a couple questions that have come in, and if you haven't asked your question already, please raise your hand. We have Greg McCoy, who's raised his hand. So, Greg, you want to ask your question? Greg? Okay. We also have a question from Bobby Romner. Do the mobile sites have to have their own EFINs? Does anyone want to take that? John?
We don't. What we do is we do what we call, we don't do mobile, a permanent mobile site. What we do is kind of like community outreach days. So, for example, there's a community outside of Baton Rouge, New Roads. It's a rural community. So what we do is we work with the charter school in that community, and we'll set up a couple of days where we do special days to go out and do returns in that rural community. So, you know, you work with your spec officer. If it's not a permanent site, then you don't need an EFA number for that particular site that we worked with, and the same thing with all the other places where they go out and do specialty events in local communities.
And John, real quickly, can you explain what an EFIN is?
EFIN is an electronic filing identification number.
Great. Okay, let's see. Do we have other questions? We have one from Rebecca Bowman. Rebecca, are you there? Rebecca? Nope.
Elsa, there was a question earlier, I think, from Lyle Hicks, saying that he was opening Beehive this year, and if any of the presenters had suggestions on regarding advertising as well as for VitaSites.
Well, as far as advertising, we use a lot of radio and internet services. Most of our sites will have access to radio where they can do public service announcements, and that really helps. In fact, a couple of our sites were fast sites, and they did public service announcements. Or they'll use the local newspapers in the surrounding communities to put that information out.
And what was the Beehive question?
Well, Lyle mentioned he was opening Beehive this year. I don't know, Lyle, if you're around still and can embellish. Did you have a question specifically about Beehive, or were you just wanting to know about advertising in general or advertising Beehive? Let us know.
No, this is Paula from NESCAP. The Beehive and through One Economy is assisting a program this year called myfreetaxes.com. It may have something to do with this question, where you can go online or you can link it to your website, myfreetaxes.com, and it's just another free way for people to complete their tax return. There's lots of good education on there. Walmart's also a sponsor of that program.
Greg, are you raising your hand? I've just unmuted you. Nope.
Forgive us all, callers. We have some people who raise their hands, but when we open their line, they seem not to be there.
Okay, well, we don't have any other questions at the moment. I guess we will wrap up unless the presenters have any last comments they want to make. Okay. All right, great. Well, we will be sending a link to the webinar recording as well as to the PowerPoint presentations, which will be available online. But it will probably be coming to you early next week. We'll also send you a link to a survey, a brief survey, which will help us make RuFES webinars better in the future. I'd like to thank all of our panelists and everyone who's participated in the webinar. And thanks very much. Hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.